All right, in this video, we're going to go over factoring a perfect square, not a difference of perfect squares. That must be understood, the difference between difference of perfect squares, which will be covered in the next video, and just a perfect square problem. Somewhere along the line, some mathematician figured out that if we have a perfect square in one spot, that looks like a 9. So it should be an A. And the perfect square in the last spot, we should check to see if that middle spot is 2 times the first and the second after you take the square root of them. And if that happens to be true, then our answer, this factored out, will be A plus B quantity squared. So long as we can verify that we have an A squared and a B squared in our problem here, then we can instantly factor it. Well, and we also have to make sure that middle part is right as well. That is the big part. Now, first of all, know your perfect squares. I have the first 13 listed here. And note that all of these can be negative as well. -1 squared, -2 squared, on and on. And you can write all these down, just the first 13 of them, every time you're about to do a problem, and eventually you will have it memorized. Just 1, 4, 9, 16, 25, 36. You'll just know those numbers: 64, 81, 100, 121, 144, 169, and then after that, it's really up to you. I draw the line at 13 squared. After that, I just I don't know what 14 squared is. I see a big number here. I think, well, it's bigger than 169, so maybe it's 14 squared. But if you multiply out 14 times 14 and you get a different number, then you don't have a perfect square. At some point, you gotta cut the memorization to. I choose 13 squared to stop there. Anyways, do we have perfect squares in this problem, this example problem? Yes. 49 is a perfect square, 7 squared. X squared is also a perfect square. Gotta remember that variables with their exponents are, you take the square root a little differently with those ones. So, square root of x squared is just x. What about over here in this potential b? Yeah, 1 is a perfect square. Could be -1 or +1. Could be -7 or +7. We don't know. So the key thing to remember is that is not a. That is a squared. We have to take the square root to find a. That trips up people a lot. Square root of that is what a is. Square root of 49, 7. Square root of x squared is just x. B is the square root of 1. Okay. So B is 1. We'll go with the standard, which is the positive. That's the standard root. Now, this part in the middle we got to verify. We have A and we have B. Check, check. Now we need to verify that this middle part is 2AB. So 2 times A, which is 7x, times B, which is 1. 2 times 7, 14. And there's an x in there, times 1. Leave it the same. 14x, is that the same? No. Got to remember that sign. So something has to be negative in here. Why don't we just make it b? Always make it b. And now we're good. So our answer is a plus b quantity squared. So a plus b, which is negative, so adding a negative is just subtracting it, quantity squared. And there is your answer. It's all factored out. Now, like any good student would do, we want to check our answer to make sure we got it right? So why don't I make some room on this board and erase this. Now we want to check our answer. So when we have parentheses squared, we've got to write out those parentheses twice. Always remember that. You're not just squaring this part and squaring that part. You got to FOIL them out. Binomial times the binomial, because the whole thing is squared. So let's FOIL it out. 7x times 7x, 49x squared. 7x times negative 1, negative 7x. Negative 1 times 7x, negative 7x. Negative 1 times negative 1, positive 1. Combine like terms. Well, that was a strange looking x. Negative 7 minus 7, negative 14x plus 1. That's our original problem. So now we know that this answer is correct. All right, let's do a couple more examples. Without this little cheat sheet to help us, I doubt you'll ever get that on your test. All right. X squared plus 22x plus 121. First thing, check to see, can we take the square root of this? Yes. A equals the square root of that leading term in this trinomial. So A is just x. B is the square root. Now, do we have a perfect square here? Yes. B equals 11. Positive or negative 11. Positive or negative x. You can always put that. Now we got to check to see if this middle part is 2ab. 2 times x times 11. 2ab, 2 times 11, 22x. Positive 22x, positive 22x. We're good. So what's our answer? A plus b quantity squared. Boom. That's all there is to it. It didn't take too long, did it? Let's do one more because this is just so easy now. Just one more example, because you might get something thrown at you like this in your homework, or just, the important thing is to not freak out, like, oh no, it's not X, it's Y. And instead of being just Y squared, it's Y to the fourth. What? That is still a perfect square. In fact, any variable to the power of an even number is a perfect square. Y to the sixth is a perfect square. Y to the 12th perfect square. Y to the, I don't know, 1024th. That is a perfect square. You know what the square root of that is? It's like, I don't know, what's 1024 divided by 2? 512? Yeah. Which is also a perfect square. But anyways. So a in this case is square root of y to the fourth. So a is y squared. B is square root of 64. Not 64, square root of 64. Oh, I forgot to put the plus minus in there. Plus or minus 8. We don't know which B and which A we're dealing with yet. All right. So what's the next step? 2AB, right? 2AB, we got 2, we got A, which is y squared, we got B, which is 8. 2AB, 2 times 8 is 16 y squared. This is a negative, so we're going to need to make one of these negative for it to come out negative. So we'll take the B and we'll make that negative. And that fixes our problem. And we have our answer, right? Not yet. Got to write it out. A plus B, adding a negative is A negative, so it's really A minus B, quantity squared. And there's the answer. And let's check that answer, just because I want to make sure I'm doing this right. I try to script these videos, but it doesn't always work out so well. Y squared minus 8. Oh, quantity squared is that quantity times the same quantity. FOIL it out. Y squared times y squared, y to the fourth. Y squared times negative 8, negative 8y squared. Negative 8 times the y squared is minus 8y squared. And negative 8 times negative 8 is positive 64. Combine like terms. Matches. So answer is check. We know that's the right answer. All right, next week I'll go over difference of perfect squares, which is different, very different. So always remember that this is separate from difference of perfect squares. That's why I'm making separate videos for them.